Dante, one of the fathers of the Italian language, was born in Florence in 1265 and died in exile in Ravenna in 1321. The purpose of this exhibition in 2021 is to commemorate the 7th centenary of his death and to bring his most popular work, The Divine Comedy, closer to the public. Recounting the author's pilgrimage through hell, purgatory, and paradise, this monumental poem ranks among the world's most important literary works. Presented from October 5th through October 31st, the exhibit features a recently acquired 1520 exemplar of The Divine Comedy, along with various editions of Dante's masterpiece in Italian and English. Classroom collaboration figured heavily in creation of the exhibit. Organized in small groups, students were given their choice of several possibilities for research. Then, meeting in the special collections at Mullins Library, they viewed several Dante artifacts.
These 3 editions here were all translated by Reverend Henry Francis Carey, and they're each unique in who illustrated them. So this one was illustrated by Gustave Doré. It has 75 of his illustrations. And this one was illustrated by Flaxman, and it's very interesting to look at because it was done in a neoclassical style. And this one here, something that I would like to point out is that the illustration, the woodcut, includes 3 different versions of Dante in one photo, which is very unique. And here, this edition, La Divina Commedia, includes Italian accents to help facilitate the pronunciation of the Italian words.
Okay, I would like to guide you through these extraordinary items that are in case number 2. The first one is known as the 1080 Tribulation Code of the Divine Comedy, and the interesting thing about this is that it contains heliochromes. What on earth are those? Those are the very, very earliest color photographs. That's what they were called. This was published 100 years ago on the, the 600th centenary of Dante's death. Originally, it was published in 1337. That copy can be found in Milan. It is a parchment copy, and it's the oldest, best preserved one that came out of Florence, the oldest and best copy of the Divine Comedy. You will see, thumbing through this, besides the drop cap letters, they're called rubricated letters in red and blue, you'll also see gorgeous miniatures, rich illuminations, and in fact, there are special introductory pages for all 3 parts of the Divine Comedy. The Inferno, Purgatory, Paradise. You can see all of them illustrated there. It's just extraordinary. Number 9, the nobility and excellence of women. That is this parchment-bound copy right here. The full title is Nobility and Excellence of Women with the Defects and Shortcomings of Men, a discourse by Lucrezia Minella. The interesting thing about this is that it lists the vices of men in pretty much exact wording that Dante used when he was describing the various sinners on display in hell, but it also includes a long list of feminine virtues. And this was published in 1621. It's a recent acquisition for the Mullins Library, so that is really nice. The next one, Spiritual Rhymes of the Illustrious, Mrs. Vittoria Colona Marquesana of Pescara. I hope that was right. That's this interesting volume back here, the brown one. It is dated 1548. It contains 213 poems. Why is this included in a display on Dante? The reason is that some of the wording kind of echoes Dante's wording. Also, some of the content, the subject matter, makes us think of Dante, but an additional reason is that this is the first woman to publish an entire volume of poetry written by herself, and that's very significant. Okay, item number 11, the notebook of William Blake, called the Rosetti Manuscript. that is this item here. This was published in 1935, and of special interest, if you come and view this exhibit, you'll see this. There is a drawing at the top of page 17, two sketches, two studies of what looks like a devil with a human body in its mouth. And in fact, that's exactly what it is. Blake did a full set of drawings on the Divine Comedy, and those sketches did depict Satan in Dante's hell, and you will recognize, when you read the Divine Comedy, you'll recognize that illustration for the scene described there. Okay, item number 12, T.S. Eliot, the expatriate American poet who wound up in Great Britain. He has written, or let's see here, Dante by T.S. Eliot. This is a commentary on Dante's Vita Nuova and the Divine Comedy. Why is that, or was that of interest to Eliot? First, he viewed Dante as his stylistic and existential model. And he went even further than that and said that Dante is required reading for anybody who wants to have a knowledge and a deep appreciation of poetry in any language. Okay, number 13, we have another artist, Sandro Balticelli. That would be this volume right here. This is a 1947 edition. Botticelli lived in 1445 to 1510. During his lifetime, he produced 28 drawings for Inferno that capture the horror of hell as well as the beauty of paradise. And the interesting thing about this is that they were forgotten. Sometime after they were produced, they just sort of vanished until they were rediscovered in libraries in Rome and in Berlin during the 1800s. The last item that we have here is more William Blake, the visionary artist and poet. Blake had been exposed during his lifetime to the work of Dante, but he couldn't read Italian. So to produce his set of drawings, he studied the Dante volume of Inferno that you saw a moment ago that was translated by the Reverend H.F. Carey, and was able to follow the Italian based on that excellent translation that is still in use today. Because William Blake died within 2 years of beginning his series of illustrations on the Divine Comedy, they were never published and they were left in various stages of completion. Referring one more time to T.S. Eliot, speaking of the visionary art of William Blake, specifically of Inferno, he called this man's imagination a creative and continuous phantasmagoria. And I think that pretty much fits.
This column is the appropriations of the Divine Comedy in other media, languages, and cultures. This section covers the modern and present-day works that are inspired by Dante's Divine Comedy. There are different representations through theater, different languages, and communities. So the first one is Francesca Diramini by poet Gabriele Di Annunzio. It's a theater adaptation of Canto 5 in Inferno. It tells the story of Francesca and Paolo, who fell in love while Francesca was married, and they ended up paying the price for love through death. So they stayed together in the second circle of hell. Then the second one is the Nueve Enseñavos Danticos by Borges, and it means the 9 essays on Dante. Borges talks about the different ways that the Divine Comedies can be enjoyed by those who have an innocence or lack of wrongdoing and those who can truly analyze it. He also talks about the different characters in the Divine Comedy and their importance to the story. Then we have the third one, which is La Divine Comédie Purgatorie by Alexandre Massacron. He offers notes on the Book of Purgatory and gives examples of each step of Dante's Purgatorial Mountain and provides us with a chart that shows the length and time being traveled. Then we have Freedom Riders by Dennis Looney. Looney writes, Looney's book provides us with different literary and visual representations of Dante and the Divine Comedy from African American authors and artists. He shows how Dante's works are connected to the United States and the African American community with different events that have taken place in history. Then we have number 5, which is The System of Dante's Hell by Leroy Jones, who's also known as Emirdi Baraka. This book is a little bit dark, but Jones takes Dante's hell and his life and certain events of African American society and contrasts and compares them. The part of his life he's comparing is the 1930s and the 1960s, where African Americans were just set free but were segregated. They weren't treated fairly, experienced a lot of hatred, and were going through the civil rights movement towards the end of that period of time in the 1960s. So ultimately, at the end, he comes to the decision that Dante's hell does not compare to what the African American society went through, and that it's like a heaven compared to those events.